listening to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Well, it's like when we audit the mod with Logic and give them the action items that they're going to use to lower their total cost of risk.
Tactical skills that will help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Technology is not an expense, it's an investment. Look at what Think HR has done for our clients and even our team. It's an amazing product, and I'm so thankful we have that.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Things are changing for us in 2021. Not all big business anymore. Now that we have CoverWallet on our team, it's amazing that we're going to be able to write small business profitably.
This is Power Producer Shop Talk. Production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? It is Friday, which means it is time for Shop Talk.
Yeah.
Last week, we started 2 weeks ago, because these drop on a weekly basis, but we do 2 every week. So last week, I recorded the first 2 episodes of the Gurley sessions with Josh when Kyle was in DC. This week, Kyle and I are going to double team him. And then next week, I'm on vacation, and Kyle and Josh are going to do 2 sessions without me around, which will be ultra entertaining and probably will require me to listen to my own podcast at some point. It's funny because I never listened to them. And then we get in the car to go on a road trip and I start listening, so I end up listening to all of them over time, but never I don't go and immediately listen to it when it drops because we record.
I've went back and listened to a few, especially if we've had somebody on for a second time. I want to remember what we talked about the first time.
Or Ryan Deeds. Dude, the Ryan Deeds, Kevin
that
Ring
one was wild.
Episodes, both of those, Kevin Ring and Ryan Deeds, were both just ridiculous.
Oh, and I did go back and listen to the to the Garbage Man story one with Hader.
Oh, yeah.
That was a must.
Yep. So anyhow, more Gurley. People want more Gurley, so we're going to give them more Gurley.
I like the Gurley sessions. That sounds like, something like some sort of ridiculous movie or I don't know.
It actually, where I stole it from was the Zach Brown Band Grohl sessions when they had Dave Grohl come in and work with them. So
there you go.
I wish I could tell you I was a creative individual, but I did steal that from them. So it is what it is. And truthfully, one of the reasons we're having the Gurley sessions is because I had a few people that reached out both on LinkedIn and over email and basically just said, why don't you get some producers on and talk to producers again in the Shop Talk format and do it on a, do it in groups or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good idea. Makes sense. Little fresh perspective.
The people have spoken. All I can do is give them what they want. Gurley was one of the names they mentioned, so he was first one up.
Cool.
Sweet. So we're going to talk today. Yeah, we're going to talk about wedges, and we might do 2 episodes on wedges. I don't know. Depends on how I feel, but I think we may do 1 episode on wedges, and then we do 1 episode on 5-tool players, because Gurley came in hot with the definition of 5-tool players. So we'll do that one next. Let's talk about wedges first, though. I mean,
I've got 3. I've got a 60-degree, 56, 52.
Yeah.
Well, I've also got the pitching wedge. If you want to throw that in there, that's 4.
Okay. And unfortunately, you probably use those more than you should.
I don't know, every Saturday.
There you go. Anyhow, from a sales standpoint, though, this is something I talk about all the time. Literally was talking about it this morning when I was doing a one-on-one coaching call with a dude in Killing Commercial. And, I think wedges, everybody knows. I mean, look, Randy Schwantz is the godfather of the wedge, right? First book I ever read when I got into the insurance industry. So, you've made an impact somewhere when people just simply take the title of your book and that now becomes standard industry vernacular, right? I mean, when you say the wedge, you got to drive the wedge. They're going back and referring to Randy's book. It's why he can charge an exorbitant amount for it, and it's worth every penny that you pay.
How much is the book?
Like $65 or $70 for a paperback on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, and he sells them, right? But I think that there's two things I want to talk about. Number one, what is the wedge, right? In terms of what specifically is the wedge you're going to use, and then number two, how do you frame it, right? Because there's a right and a wrong way to frame the things that we're going to talk about today. So I'll kick it off and give you the example that I used earlier when I was doing my one-on-one call. For those of you not in Killing Commercial, now you're getting a little bit of paid content for free. Don't get used to it. That being said, one of the wedges that I always look for with regard to workers' comp is missing credits, right? Like we were talking, and when Josh gets into some of his stuff, I told him, like, you must be competing against some really highly qualified agents wherever you are competing, because it is not that hard in Florida. I'm literally looking for missing credits on a workers' comp policy. And safety and drug-free, those are low-hanging fruit. Surprisingly, not on the policy a lot.
Yeah.
But the one that I know is never going to be on there, probably 85 to 90% of the time, is the premium adjustment program, the contractor's premium adjustment program for Florida. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is, number one, it's a little bit cumbersome in terms of the way you get the information. It's like you need to get the quarter-ending payrolls from the third quarter for the year before the policy went into effect, I think is what it is. If Kevin Ring's listening to this, I'm not as smart as you are, man. I can't pull this kind of stuff up off of my head, but I think that's what it is. I think it's the quarter before the policy went into effect. You have to have the third quarter payrolls. Is that right, Josh?
Kevin Ring is the expert, and I don't do a whole lot of business in Florida, so
okay, I'm
not 100% sure.
I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. So a lot of agents don't even understand, or they'll get the information and they didn't read the form right in the instructions, so it's the wrong information, and as a result, now they're going back and forth with NCCI and they just get burnt out. So and the other thing is, it's not as big of a credit as it used to be. I've seen them as high as like 10+%, and now it seems like you're only going to get like maybe 1 to 5% in many cases, unless it's a monster account. But it all depends on the function of premium and all of the other stuff in terms of the size of it. But regardless, it's not there. And so it's an easy way to begin to establish yourself as somebody that's a trusted advisor or expert, because you recognize that they're spending money they shouldn't be, because this credit's free to them. They should at least apply for it, if nothing else. Now, the question, but that's the wedge. Look for the credits on the policies. Look at safety, drug-free. If you have a contractor credit in your state, look there too. Now, there's two things I could do. Here's the wrong way. Holy crap, man, your agent left the contractor's credit off your policy. I can't believe that. Probably not the best way to frame the wedge, right? But I've been in rooms where I've heard people approach it that way. You got to.
I think it depends on who you're talking to a little bit on that.
Well, but the thing is, there's a way, though, to be more polished in how you
Sure.
do it. So how I would bring that same thing up is, out of curiosity, I noticed that the contractor's credit's missing from your workers' comp policy. When you and your agent sat down to do the paperwork to apply for that, did you just determine that it was too cumbersome and wasn't worth the time? I assume that there's a conscious reason that the credit was left off, but I want to make sure that I understand what that is in case it's an accident. Not anywhere near as in your face as, holy crap, your agent left it off your policy. So think about that. And I mean, that's one of the things I want to make sure that we cover is we bring up these different wedges that we can use at the point of sale. I also want to talk about how you sort of soften that delivery by framing it the right way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, to your point about workers' comp, I mean, for everybody that's listening that's not in Florida, because as you've well documented, Florida has the non-competitive rates, and the carriers have state mandated rates. But for a lot of the other states like Georgia, where I'm at, if I'm thinking about workers' comp, the first couple things that are going to pop into my head, and if you're in an NCCI state, I hope these things pop into your head, but I'm always thinking about things like net reporting of claims versus gross reporting of claims. I'm always thinking about, hey, what's the max deductible that you can take per the state, and those claims still not be held against you when it comes to your experience mod factor. In the state of Georgia, it's $2,500. For example, state of Oklahoma, it's $1,000. State of Tennessee is a gross reporting state, so you can have a deductible, but those claims still hit your mod at 100%. And so for me, it's all about formulating a plan around the rules that are available. So, you have a lot of states that have the experience rating adjustment, which is the 70% reduction for medical-only claims on the actual primary. And so there's a ton of stuff out there.
Dude, you just gave like 5 wedges in that just one little snippet.
Well,
right? I'm being serious.
Yeah. No, it is, and I haven't even gotten to the part about you should know what every carrier is filed for in your state. So let's just have an example. Let's just say you're working with a carrier or with somebody that has a good mod. Let's say you're going in with a
Hey, hold on for 1 second before you go down this road, because I know where you're headed with it.
Yeah.
Before you do that, for the sake of everybody listening that may not know what a net reporting versus gross reporting looks like, talk about what a net reporting, what the difference is between a net reporting state and a gross reporting state.
Sure. So net reporting means that if you take a deductible on your workers' comp, that the portion of the claim that's under that deductible does not get reported to NCCI, and therefore it does not hurt your experience mod. And different states have different thresholds for that. So, for example, in Georgia, where I'm at, is $2,500. You could take a small deductible program, I think goes up to $5,000 or $10,000 in Georgia. You could take a $10,000 per claim deductible. Even if you're on a medium program, $25,000 or something like that, only the first $2,500 of any claim is not going to count against you. So that's why with all of our clients, whether it's big, small, whatever, we recommend having a $2,500 deductible, especially if there's a frequency issue. So there are other states, for example, like Tennessee.
Florida's gross reporting too.
So you'll have a gross reporting state, and that means that you can have a deductible. That's fine if you want to do that, but the only thing it's really helping you on is the loss ratio for your, for the policy. It's not really helping you on the mod because 100% of that number is hitting that experience mod. And then there are other states where you have to actually select the program. I believe Missouri is a state where you have to select the program. I'm not Kevin Ring by any stretch of the imagination who you mentioned, but just in the states that we operate in, I try to learn those rules. And if you're working on an account that has a frequency issue, and maybe they're having a lot of, I claims and $200 here and $200 there, and we can have a conversation about PPE at a later date, but just from an actual workers' compensation mod standpoint, those claims are hurting their mod, because those primary losses that you see on the experience mod form, those are the ones that are going to hurt you the most. And so having that deductible is going to take those off of your experience mod, and then you can run reports with some of the different mod softwares that are out there. I won't go into any detail on the names of those, but you can run reports. And
there's only one that matters to me, and that's Mod Advisor. I'm just going to throw that out there. Mod Advisor with Mr. Todd Tams,
who is a great dude and a sharp work comp guy, by the way.
We only hang out with sharp work comp guys, Josh. On this show, I don't know if you figured it out or not, but you have to be pretty sharp on workers' comp. And I did want to let everybody know that Kevin Ring told me he would pay me $5 for every time I mentioned his name on a podcast episode. So I think we're somewhere at around $55 that he owes me so far.
Well, and Steven Sedlak told me that every time I mentioned his book, The Work Comp Effect or The Comp Control Effect, I was going to get a commission as well. So if Steven's
there, you go.
But so I don't really remember where I left off, but the point of it is just that you can run a report, you can see what your mod would have been had those deductibles been applied, and a lot of times if you're in a frequency situation, it can make a significant impact on somebody's premium.
So how do you package that, man? Like, how do you bring that up when you're talking to the client? Because I do agree. I think everybody that is going to delve into talking about experience mods needs to do so using software. I mean, I've got friends. I could still use a pen and paper and calculate the mod. Great. Can you also construct all of the reports that come from?
Yeah, it's the visual aspect that you're able to provide.
Yeah, this isn't a bragging contest about who's better at math. I'll give you that one right out of the box. You're probably way better at math than I am, but I want to have something that I can take that relatively complicated calculation from the perception of a prospect and get it in front of them in such a way that it makes sense to them, right? And you have to do that using, I hate to say it, like bright colors and big pictures, right? I mean, look, there's a reason why in the med device and pharma industry that you have to write informed consent documents to a 6th grade reading level, okay? You should be thinking about that. And this is not me being smart. I'm being dead serious. When you're talking to your prospect and your clients to some degree, you need to communicate as if you're talking at a 6th grade level. That takes a little bit of practice to be able to dial that down without being offensive in your approach. So I tell you that because I think everybody should have the software. I think everybody should have run that deductible analysis because it's really easy. You just put in the different levels of deductibles you want to look at, and it's going to tell you the difference in the mod on each of those levels. But I'm interested, Josh, when you're there and you're sitting with the prospect, how do you frame it in such a way that you're smoother than just, oh, I can't believe you don't have this?
Oh, that's how I operate, Dave. I just come out and tell them. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know better.
I'm kidding. So, I think for me, it's just more about helping people come to their own conclusions, right? I mean, if you're doing your job, it's kind of like getting married. And once you ask somebody to get married to you, you should already know the answer before you're going to ask. And so the way that I like to frame it is just when I see that and I know it and I've already run it through the software and I'm going to ask the question, I just frame it something to the effect of, so one of the things that we work with our clients on is to help people get to their lowest possible experience mod. And there's some different ways that can be done, and I'm curious, what ways is your current representation using to help you get to that lowest possible number? And typically the response is, what is my lowest possible mod?
Mm-hmm.
And because people, they don't know how to do it, and all you have to do on the mod worksheet is divide out 2 numbers, and it's going to tell you what that lowest possible mod is.
So right there, you're already showing them that they don't know that hasn't been discussed before. So you're leading them down that path to realize it on their own.
Yeah, my approach is just a hair different. I would typically say something like, when you sat down with your agent to talk about your lowest possible mod and how far the gap is between where you are and where that is, what were the action steps that you came up with to move in the right direction? Something like that. I mean, just different wording, same message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And when they ask that question about what's my lowest possible mod, depending on the situation, if it's going really good and I feel like I may have an opportunity to ask for a BOR right on the spot, I may say, hey, look, take this number and divide it by this number. And then we can go have that conversation about, has your current representation ever had a conversation with you about how much the claims are costing you? And they're like, well, I have no idea how much these claims are costing me. And I think that just opens up the opportunity to have a finance discussion and just say, look, workers' comp is nothing but a finance arrangement where you're paying money in, insurance companies are paying money out, the mod is a part of that, and what our goal is to help get you out of the game of swapping dollars with insurance companies. And I think when you take that approach, number one, you're not really throwing the competitor under the bus, because that's just not something that I do. I mean, quite frequently people try to throw me under the bus when I come with recommendations like this. And, I just try to always take the high road in those situations. And then two, it starts becoming abundantly clear to them that they're going to need to make a change. And I tell people that up front. I'm like, this is not about giving you an insurance quote. This is not about anything other than trying to make it abundantly clear that you need to fire, as we talked about in one of the episodes before, that you need to fire your current representation and you need to hire us. And so I think it just leads them down that path in kind of a way that they can come to their own conclusion.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing, is making sure they're coming to their own conclusion. Now, sometimes, to Kyle's point, you might be dealing with somebody who can't come to their own conclusion, and you need to be a little bit more direct. Thankfully, those times are few and far between for me.
Agree.
All right, Kyle, you're up with the wedge game.
Yeah, one of the ones that we use, quite a bit in line with the workers' comp is the return to work program. I mean, everybody always thinks that they have one, but we start discussing return to work, and most of the time that's not the case. I can recall a number of appointments that you and I have been on where we've run into that same situation, and it's brought up much like you just brought this last example up. So when you sat down with your agent, reviewing your policy and for the renewal, what in terms of the return to work policy or return to work program, what did you guys come up with there? What's that look like? What's the formalized process? And most of the time they don't have anything formalized. It's always, oh, well, yeah, we've got that in place. And then you start asking about
if one of us walks in and says, you have a return to work program? 100% of the time, the answer is yes. They
always
say
say
that
yes
to get you to move on to the next question.
And most of the time, they don't even know what it is. Right. Exactly. So, so then typically the next follow-up question is, oh, okay, so then you've got the letter that goes out to the physician stating that you guys are a return to work, employer, and that your goal is to get them back as soon as they're healthy enough to get back. Right. And then that starts creating a little bit of like, well, we don't necessarily have that. And then it just leads you down a path of, much like Josh was just talking about, realization on their own that they may not have this as buttoned up as they think.
Well, here's the thing, man. I don't ever ask a question that I don't have the solution to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's net reporting, then I have the ability to place them with a carrier that's going to offer them the small deductible and fix that issue. If I'm going to talk to them about return to work, it's because I have the ability to give them a return to work program and train them on everything from soup to nuts to get that put in. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things. It's why I'm such a huge fan of making sure you're preparing your questions ahead of time. I can't tell you how many producers I know that literally, and by the way, people, this goes back to when you're hanging your hat on selling an insurance product as opposed to going in and demonstrating value and uncovering operational issues. You don't have the flexibility that we have. We are able to go into these accounts and drive change because we're not focusing on the insurance and the renewal, period. None of us, other than the net reporting piece being a mechanism that's tied to an insurance product, none of us have talked about an insurance issue, right? It's a credit here. It's, it's this, that, or the other, but it's not ever coverage. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make. They want to go in and they want to point out a bunch of coverage deficiencies, and they want someone who's had a long-term relationship with somebody that in their mind they trust to make a buying decision to leave and fire that person based off of what somebody said to them one time that they met. And that's not how it works. You have to have a much more powerful argument than that. That's why you have to plan your questions out before you go in. That's why you need to identify, here's where I think that there may be a wedge. But guess what? You may ask the question, get a picture perfect answer, and you were wrong. You may need to know how to gracefully move away from that too. So I think that when you're going in and you're dropping these bombs on people, having them framed as one, but you're only dropping those bombs that you can solve. And we certainly can't solve every single issue internally. That's why we have tools like KPA and ThinkHR, or the formerly known as ThinkHR, now Mineral, all of that we can go in and drop them on. So if you don't have return to work, great. We've got that. Here you go. And so I'm asking my questions around the things that I know. So when I'm driving a wedge, I'm asking the questions around the things that I know I can deliver in my value proposition that my competition simply isn't going to do, right? And so for me, talking about return to work, great. That's an easy one because we have that prepackaged, built out, and ready to go.
It's done.
How about this? Talk to me a little bit about I noticed that your workers' comp claims are up based on the loss runs. And some of this stuff seems very rudimentary to me in terms of, how easy it would be to fix. Talk to me a little bit about two things. Number one, I'm interested in your hiring process and what you do to screen people coming in. Do you have them do a routine fit for duty physical as part of the job offer? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go down the road of, what kind of, talk to me a little bit about your training. Talk to me about your manual material handling training. You have a lot of back injuries from lifting. Do you have a team lift policy? Have you taught your people proper lifting techniques? Is that documented somewhere? Were they quizzed to make sure that they understood it? I mean, you can just keep drilling. Again, has nothing to do with insurance, but when you finally beat them into submission and they don't know, the answer is you can say, hey, listen, not a problem. This is what we do. We have this. That's why I was asking the question, because this is an easy fix. This is something we could do almost immediately for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if your end game is to solve the problem, you frame your question around what that problem is. Period. And then you automatically have a chance to talk about the solution. Yep. We've been going 25 minutes, man. We got to wrap this one up. We could go for a whole other episode on wedges. I think Gurley was just starting to get warmed up, and he didn't even get to throw out margin clause. So maybe what we'll do is we'll defer 5-tool player till next week, and you two can talk about that, and we'll just do episode 2 of the wedges next. So we're going to wrap this one up to keep it under time, and we will see everybody next week. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Power Producers Shop Talk. You can follow us at the Power Producers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our commercial insurance training course at killingcommercial.com or visit Amazon to pick up a copy of our international best-selling book, The Extra 2 Minutes.